Go ahead, Eddie. Light up and take a poke. It'll turn you on. Hey, Eddie, this isn't the first time you've tried pot. Okay, we'll give you exactly 30 minutes to make up your mind, to decide for yourself whether pot is worth it.
La, 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 pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not. High, high, I wanna get high. Never give it up if you give it a try. Pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not. La, 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 la.
Actually, as much as I would like to deny the fact that pot was the beginning of my usage of drugs, I mean, it's there as a fact. It was the beginning of my using of drugs.
La, 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 pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not. Tough, tough, the world is so tough. And when it gets harder, you can try harder stuff. Oh, 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 oh.
And like, I didn't care if I lived or died, so I didn't care if I used, shot dope or if I took an OD or what.
I had too much. I was building a big thing up over a week, and I got sick, and I tried to commit suicide.
La, 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 pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not. Hip, hip, you wanna be hip. You know it all if you don't take a trip. La, la.
Remember, Eddie, when you were busted? Caught with marijuana in your possession? What's the use? For every reason against pot, you can give 2 for. But how can you communicate with the establishment? Okay, Eddie. We'll let you talk to your own kind. Cats who are hip, who know the truth about pot, not from books, but from experience. Gary McCormick, U.S. Air Force, 1951 and 1955.
John Burrell, U.S. Army, World War II.
Fred Phillips, U.S. Navy, World War II.
Relax, Eddie. You're among buddies now. We've all smoked pot for more years than you've lived. Eddie, why do you want to trip on marijuana? Help him out, John.
What's wrong with pot? We all live in a pressure cooker world. The lid's ready to blow any minute. Just to get along today, everybody's got to have his own thing. Society says it's okay for mom to have her aspirins, sleeping pills, tranquilizers, yeah, even the pill. It's okay for Dad to come home and guzzle his martinis after piling up the do-re-mi, trying to keep up with the neighbors. Red's the name of the game. Dad says be honest while he cheats in his business, on his income tax, anything to get ahead. Cheat, cheat, cheat.
Yeah, you're damn right.
Man, they're all screwed up. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Who wants to live like them? No wonder the kids today are rebelling, developing their own lifestyle.
In the service, it's even worse. Do this, do that, wake up, lights out, tension, at ease. Man, just to keep from blowing your stack, you've got to have your own bag. Anyway, what's wrong with pot? It's not habit forming. You can't get cancer smoking it. So you get yourself a high, so what? Is it any worse than booze?
Pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not. Do, take a family cruise. You with your grass, mom and dad with their booze. Ooh, la, 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 la.
Forget whether pot is good or bad for you, Eddie. Why do you need to cop out? Okay, Eddie, listen to what some ex-dope addicts say about pot.
I started smoking pot in high school because I was bored and looking for a new kick.
Kids get started on pot because they're very curious and they want to start a new thing.
When I was in high school, all my friends used pot. I did it because I didn't want to look chicken.
I started smoking pot when I was about 15 in high school. I seen a crowd there that was very popular and had a lot of fun and seemed to be into something. And I wanted to be a part of it.
In Korea, I was the only black man in our outfit. And talk about pressure and being alone and scared. But in smoking pot, it helped me make it.
What kind of help? How did it affect you?
How does pot affect you, Eddie?
You sure see life like it really is, right, Eddie?
That all?
Hell, man, pot's been around thousands of years. Still nobody knows much about it.
Well, let's find out a few things.
Pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not. La, la, la.
Other countries have had lots of experience with pot. We're beginning to do some experiments ourselves. Medics have finally come up with the stuff in pot that gives you the kick. It's a $5 word called tetrahydrocannabinol. Hell, man, I can't even say it. We know pot affects everyone differently. Eddie, you're going to take the equivalent of a couple of sticks, U.S. type. Go ahead, take it. Go on, drink it. Imagine you've been dragging on a reefer, Eddie. Now the smoke's in your lungs. Now it's in your bloodstream, on the way to your brain and nervous system. You're way up on weed, Eddie. How do you feel?
Man, I'm floating. I'm coming apart. These guys can't touch me. I'm living really. I'm floating over the whole damn universe.
You're back in Vietnam, Eddie. Hear those mortar shells?
Beautiful. Man, they're like church bells.
Scared, Eddie?
Nah. They can't hurt me. Nothing can hurt me.
How far away are they, Eddie?
Miles, tens, hundreds of miles.
How long between shells, Eddie?
Minutes, hours, who cares?
How about your reflexes, Eddie?
Man, I've got supernatural powers. Just try me.
What about everyday things? Like driving a car?
Man, just give me the wheel. Give me the wheel, baby.
Pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not.
San Ysidro, California, at the Mexican border. In May of last year, Sergeant T.J. Crippen returned from one of his regular monthly visits to Tijuana. Hidden under the hood of his car was a lid of marijuana to feed his daily habit of smoking a stick before reporting for duty. May 25th.
That morning I felt really stoned.
Look out!
When I was positioning my truck to refuel a KC-135, I barely missed the engine. Man, was I scared. Pot was beginning to affect my reactions.
That day, Sergeant Crippen decided to turn himself in. September of the same year, Republic of Vietnam. 3 members of a supply company assigned to the motor pool had shared a stick Vietnamese type, packing a far stronger wallop than U.S. marijuana. Tripping on pot, they decided to go on the town. They never got past the gate. But what if they had?
I'll never get behind the wheel. You lose all sense of reality.
Time, distance, even your memory gets all out of whack.
Pot brings out the worst in you. The queer instincts, the killer instincts. Because it happened to me while I was there in Korea. The killing part came out in me. I didn't like the idea of killing, but I had to, and I just became good at it.
June of last year. Special Forces Camp, Republic, Vietnam. James Williams, member of a squad about to assume night defensive positions, smoked for the first time a hand-rolled Vietnamese reefer, given him by Joseph Grady. At 2000, Williams went on bunker guard duty. This was his testimony.
I felt I was about to die. Bubbles were going through my whole body. Something told me to go get Grady. I just had to get him.
Grady, come out here, so help me. Williams, come back here. Grady.
Good guy, Williams. Put down that weapon.
Let me alone. I gotta do it.
It's your last chance, Williams.
That night, Grady and 2 other men were killed. Williams seriously wounded.
So what? You read about it every day. Some cool going off his rocker. So what do? They blame it on pot.
Anyone can go psycho if he takes enough tetrahydrocannabinol in his system, Eddie.
Man, oh man, you must think I'm stupid or something. You take 5 spoons of salt, 180 proof whiskey, and they'll knock you on your can too. Anyone who's hip knows when to quit on pot, how much it take to get his high.
What are your highs like, Eddie?
Do you always get a good trip?
I first smoked pot in World War II. It did me no good. It was like the walls of a room closing in on me.
Bangkok, April of this past year. 3 U.S. airmen being transferred from Taiwan to an Air Force base in Thailand stopped off here overnight. In Southeast Asia, marijuana can be bought in bars, restaurants, dance halls. The airmen made their purchase on the street. 6 joints at 16 cents U.S. money per joint. They picked a small side street hotel for their pot party.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Wow. Beautiful. Wow. Wow.
Everybody must get stoned. Everybody must get stoned.
Wow.
Everybody must get stoned. Everybody must get stoned.
Wow.
Everybody must get stoned.
Wow.
Everybody
Beautiful.
must get
Beautiful.
Everybody
Wow. Beautiful.
prevent detection of the smell of pot, the door had been sealed. The airman did not know there was a defective gas heater in that room. Next morning, Sergeant Henderson was found dead, asphyxiated. Sergeant Miles had choked on his own vomit. Only Sergeant Bryan would survive to tell what had happened.
So some guys got gassed.
They were out for kicks, Eddie. They come to depend on pot.
Oh, man, knock it off. Next you'll be telling me you can get hooked on pot.
You're right, Eddie. Your body doesn't get to need pot like heroin or other hard stuff, but you can get hooked in a different way.
Starting last winter, I began using marijuana every day. I kept my supply in a field off base. I smoked alone or on my way to work. I'd come to look forward to every morning. I suppose it was all in my mind, but anyway, it became a habit. I couldn't, and I didn't want to break.
It's called psychological dependence.
Yeah, well, this cat can take it or leave it.
You're still an amateur, Eddie.
Don't con me. Hey, isn't it time for the old numbers game? You know, how many guys went from pot to acid to meth to horse? Save your breath, because I know better.
Listen, stupid. Gary's got more tracks on his arm than you got freckles on your butt.
That's right, punk. It is the numbers game. That's the way it adds up. From pot to meth to horse. Take a look at this, buddy.
Beautiful, man, but dig this. In all of the U.S., there are maybe 60 to 70,000 known heroin addicts, while millions of kids in high school and college have smoked pot.
Two brothers stationed in Korea, there they started smoking pot. They started using heroin in Korea also. About 2 years ago, one of my brothers died from an overdose of heroin. In the last year or so, I've worked with many and many of those addicts, and they all started on pot.
When you're looking for a better high, the next grooviest thing is horse.
One of the worst things about pot, it leads you to a pusher.
Pot, pot, give me some pot. Forget what you are, you can be what you're not.
New York City, August of last year. Two detectives from the Bureau of Narcotics had under surveillance a high school student, George Keeling, known to be a marijuana pusher. To determine his source, his arrest had been delayed. San Francisco. A week later, a package arrived from Vietnam sent by one Corporal Thomas Keeling, addressed to his brother, George Keeling. Opened by a mail examiner in the Customs Mail Bureau, the package contained merely a souvenir pillow. Concealed within it, however, was 1 pound of marijuana, Vietnam grass. After the postal inspector was notified, the package was resealed and sent by special mail pouch to the General Post Office in New York City. Upon its receipt, the Customs Agency Service was advised. The U.S. Attorney was promptly informed. In turn, he notified the New York City Police as well as the military authorities. On August 22nd, the police, accompanied by a postal inspector, entered the Keeling flat. The package with its contents was seized, and 17-year-old George Keeling was arrested. The scene shifts to Saigon. There, Thomas Keeling, who had been apprehended and punished before for use of marijuana, now faced a general court-martial. The penalties for possession, use, transfer, or sale of marijuana in the military service are severe, ranging from a term of imprisonment with forfeiture of pay to dishonorable discharge and up to 5 years at hard labor. Thomas Keeling received the maximum.
Dishonorable discharge means losing your GI rights, Eddie, your home loan, thousands of dollars in training and education benefits, as well as your self-respect.
Whether you like it or not, it's illegal, Eddie. Get it through your thick skull. It's against the law.
If you're a civilian and get busted, you get yourself in a hell of a lot of trouble.
You can go psycho. You can hurt yourself or someone else.
January, Mekong Delta, Vietnam. Howard Ferguson was diagnosed to be in a psychotic state. A supply of marijuana had been found in his locker. The day before, he'd been acting strangely, picking fights with his shipmates. This was the period of the Tet Offensive. Howard Ferguson wasn't much use in defense of his buddies that day.
Back in Vietnam, Eddie. You ever have a buddy? What happened to him? Eddie, why do you need pot?
What's your hang-up, Eddie?
Come on, tough guy, level with us.
What kind of guys fool around with pot? Speak up, Eddie. Fred, remember? You were a pothead. Busted 3 times.
You thought the law couldn't touch you?
First you got 3 months. Next 6. Last time a year.
What were you, Fred?
Tell him, Fred. What were you?
Stupid, I guess.
Louder.
Stupid.
Louder.
Stupid! Stupid!
Who do you live with, Fred?
My mother.
Who takes care of you, Fred?
My mother.
Who makes your bed? Cleans your clothes? Pays your bills?
My mother.
Take a good look at yourself, Fred. What do you see?
What are you, Fred? What kind of guy are you?
A baby. A baby! A baby!
Grow up, Fred. Take on the responsibilities of a man.
If you want to change the world, get with it. But quit running away from your problems.
Eddie, remember your buddy? He smoked pot.
Sure calms you down. Go on, Johnny, try some.
Nah, I get nothing from it.
You know I gotta take care of you.
Cut it out, Ed.
Makes you feel real groovy, like gun home. VC, let's get him.
Eddie, those woods are full of VC.
Come on, don't be chicken. The woods are a mile away.
You're crazy, Eddie. They're right on us.
Go on, take a powder. I'll go alone.
Eddie, come back. Eddie! 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 Eddie!
What the hell you guys doing out here?
Johnny, he's dead. Johnny's dead. Johnny's dead. Johnny! Johnny!
Why do you need pot, Eddie? Why cop out?
I guess inside I'm pretty weak. The tough guy was just a cover-up. It's been that way all my life.
Scared of life, Eddie? It's a beginning. The jury's still out on just how bad pot is for you. But you be your own judge and jury. 30 minutes ago, we said we'd let you make up your own mind. Time's up, Eddie. Eddie's not alone. Some of you watching this film may one day sit in that chair. Is pot worth it? Ask yourself. Is pot really worth it? Think about it.
Gonji, my nightmare, please set me free from dreams of despair. I am so lonely, wishing someone would care. Gonji won't remind me of the truth that I feel. I'm on Gonji's dream. Who do things unreal? I'm on Gonji's dream. Who do things unreal?
If I can make an impression on just one of you kids that's here, that's really all I want. Because if somebody somewhere had made an impression on me, maybe I wouldn't have done it.
This is Florrie Fisher's story, told in her own words to a group of New York City high school students, typical of teenagers across the country.
But I'm very
It's not a
happy
pretty
to see
story.
this group here, and
It's a story of heartbreak and hell.
that I would like
It's
to
a
make.
story of
Firstly, this is
23
the
wasted
first time
years
I
in the
have
life of a
been
drug addict.
to a mixed
17 of those years
and I'm very
behind
proud of
bars.
the chance.
It's a true story.
Silverman said something wrong. He said I was a drug addict. Well, I was not a drug addict. I am a drug addict. I haven't used anything in over 4 years, but I never forget that I am a drug addict. And I want to thank you very, very much for letting me talk to you, because this is my lifeline. I have to talk about it every day. You know, I'll be very honest with you. I never have days that I'm just completely like everybody else. Every time my mother aggravates me, and she's 80 years old, and my dad's 89, and God bless him, they aggravate the hell out of me. You know, I say, oh, I wish I could get high. But it's a feeling that I have inside. Gut level, I'd like to be high. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a great feeling. You smoke marijuana, and it's great. You go further than that, it's even greater. Gut level, I like that feeling, but intellectually, I now know that I can't smoke one stick of pot. I can't take one snort of horse. I can't take one needle of cocaine, because I am an addictive personality, and that's all I need is one of anything. You know, I need one dress. If I happen to like this dress in tan, I buy the same dress in green and black and pink. This is the type of personality I am. The world is full of it. Now, I know you kids, in order to have the ends justify the means, have read, have talked, have heard, marijuana is not addictive. Well, that's true. Marijuana is not addictive. The doctors are telling you the truth. Marijuana is not physically addictive, but it is so psychologically addictive that you cannot. And before I go any further, I'll tell you, people say, give me statistics. The hell with statistics. I don't want a piece of paper with numbers on it. I am unto myself a statistic, the only statistic I need. Along with me, 23 years of living with nothing but gutter hypes and junkies. I have thousands of friends, if you will. They're all junkies, and there isn't one, not one, who didn't start smoking marijuana. Now, I've talked to kids, and they say, well, Miss Fisher, your talk is not pertinent to me because my culture is just smoking marijuana. Well, you know what? My culture just smoked marijuana until we got on horse. And, you know, you're young. You know, you're beautiful with young youth. And along with young youth comes a curiosity of young youth. And if you smoke a stick of pot and you feel good, who here can tell me that if somebody says, man, that was a gas, you ain't lived until you took a snort of horse. Don't you want to try it? You know it can't happen to you. You're not going to get hooked with one shot, and you're not going to get hooked with one shot, and you over there with the beads on, you're not going to get hooked with one shot. But it only takes one shot to take a second shot, and that second shot goes into a third, and then you get like me. You start needing $185 a day. And you know what? The bank presidents don't have that kind of money at their command. So now, here I am. I'm a girl from a nice middle to upper class Jewish family. I have a sister and brother who are the pillars of society. I'm the baby. I was very much loved by my parents. I won't go into it now, but I blame my mother and father for loving me too much. I lied. From the time I could talk, I was a pathological liar. And all of this was a lead-up into my addictive personality. Now, I was in the country, in the Jewish Catskills, and I met what you call a hippie now, was a zoot-zooter then, you know, the whole bit with the peg pants, the long jacket, and the swinging keychain, the mustache, and the sideburns. And I thought he was just gorgeous. And I conned my mother into going home and letting me stay at a girlfriend's whose parents had their own little place in the mountains. So I spent the weekend with this guy, and he was smoking marijuana. And I thought he was just so marvelous. Anything he wanted to do, I wanted to identify with him, and I did it. Never heard of marijuana before. And incidentally, you school kids, don't think, well, education. You know, I'm a college graduate. It doesn't matter. Drugs, marijuana, arose by any other name. Well, drug is the most negative working thing that I have ever met. It sucks every part of you up in a negative way. Now, you all sit complacently. It can happen to you. It can and it will. You girls, you Negroes, I don't know whether you live in Harlem, but I know a Harlem that you kids don't know. You know, I know a Harlem where I laid on Dope Street. I'm sure it's still Dope Street, 117th Street. I know the sports bar is closed. I know all these places. I copped there. All the cocaine, all the caps, all the $25 half loads and the $50 bundles. I copped from everybody. And there I was, sleeping in a bathroom, nodding out where any man could make me his prey. And you know what? It wouldn't make any difference because I didn't know. I was zonked. I didn't have to do this. This is something drugs led me to. Now, I married a man, this boy, you know, he smoked marijuana. This was his only crime. He was a young kid. He had 2 years of college. And you know what I did? I made a pimp out of him, an 18-carat pimp. I was a call girl. I was young, I was fly, I was pretty, and I was out selling my body. Kept going to jail, and, you know, 10 years later, I had to be $10 cheaper, and I wasn't a call girl. I became a madam. Then I became a street whore. Then I've been in every department store. My mug is in every post office. It isn't now, thank God, but it was. But there was no place that I could go, and I kept going to jail. I was busted 3 months after I got my first habit, and I was sentenced to 1 to 3 years. That's pen and death in the house of detention in Greenwich Village. I'm sure you all know where it was. And I spent 24 months there on my first offense for possession of a needle. I came out, and what do? You know, you're hooked. Psychologically, you're hooked. You're in jail, you're out jail, you're using. If you're not, you're thinking of how quickly you can use and when. You know, every day that I spent in jail, I dreamt about the time I could cook my breakfast up in a teaspoon, and I'm sure every one of you have been exposed to that type of talk. This is a shot of heroin. Now, I came out of jail, I went back to jail. I came out of jail, I went back to jail. I've done 4 years, 5 years. In the house of detention, I have 12 years racked up in 30 days, in 90 days, in a year, in 3 years. I have 4 years in Bedford. I was in Rayford, and I did a year. I came out, and in 1955, I got married, October 16th. And on my honeymoon, 2 days later in Key West, I was busted. And I went to jail for 4 years. Well, in all that time, my husband and I, the only lovemaking we ever did was our letter once a week where we swore undying love. You know, I haven't seen my husband. I came out, he met me, and it kind of dissipated itself. It's not important. But the thing is, there was my life. And you know something? I know that every one of you kids feel great. You know, she's 50 years old. How does she identify with you? I do identify with you. You know why? I'm a 50-year-old hippie. I think exactly like you think. The only thing is you think it, and I have thought it, done it, acted upon it, and suffered by it. Now, you know, you can be smart or you can be stupid. And I tell you, if you smoke marijuana, if you take speed, if you use any exhilarant or any depressant, you're foolish. Because you can't get away with it. I assure you, I'm a pretty smart cookie. You know, I was a confidence woman. I built people all over the country. I'm by any standard smart. The only thing is, I wasn't smart with dope. I couldn't handle it. And there's nobody in the world that can handle it. Now, I can't tell you not to do it, but I can suggest to you, believe it, you're your brother's keeper. And I know the code of the streets goes for even the squares. You don't want to tell. You know, you don't want to be a rat fink. But you want to know something? You've got to be a rat fink. If you don't want to put your name down, let me tell you something. If I had a friend who was smoking marijuana and I knew it, I wouldn't say, hey, Jake, I'm going to tell on you. I would take his name, take his address, say he's smoking pot, and to use the expression of the streets, I'd drop a dime on him. I'd put a 10-cent stamp in an envelope, put his name and address on it, and drop it in the mailbox. Somebody will take it up from there. But you have to do it. If somebody did it to me, I wouldn't be here talking to you like this. I have a father who's still living. I have a mother who's still living. Do you think this is easy for me? My name is flashed all over the papers. I'll be on TV, national network. Do you think they like it? They don't like it, but they're proud of me now. And with their old European wisdom, they said, well, your name was flashed all over the papers every time you got busted. You know, at least now your nose is clean and you're doing something. And this is how I kind of feel. Maybe I'll use the word missionary. If I can make an impression on one, just one of you kids that's here, that's really all I want. Because if somebody somewhere had made an impression on me, maybe, I wouldn't have done it. Now, I was talking at Norland High. And you know what? In an auditorium that had 2,500 seats, in a school that had almost 3,000 students, and I assume every one of these students had at least one parent, 50 parents showed up. They didn't give a damn about their kids. And you know something? I really, maybe I'm saying the wrong thing. I don't expect too much of you kids. How the hell can they expect you to care when your mother and father don't care? And they have to care because they're the ones that have to recognize it. And I know you all talk. Sure, you hear. They're taking dope. Their pupils are pinpoints. They're on the nod. They're hanging over there. Their noses down to the floor. That's fine. You're taking morphine or you're taking heroin. But what about the mother who says, I don't believe it. I told my daughter to do the bedroom and she's cleaning the whole house. Isn't this marvelous? She's just abounding with energy. Well, 9 chances out of 10, she's abounding with methadone, speed, disoxin, amphetamine, cocaine. These are exhilarants. And if a mother is looking for pinpointed pupils, she won't find them. She'll find big, black, dilated pupils. But if she doesn't know, what can she do about it? If a kid comes home and says, Mama, I'm sleeping over at Jack's house, and Mama calls up and he's not at Jack's house, so what? So he comes home and says, oh, Mama, I said Jack, but I really meant Jim. Well, he's not telling the truth. He was out getting high, stealing a car, laying out on the beach, smoking pot. And to use an old Jewish cliche, from this comes the worst diseases. Nobody can get away with it. And you say, I repeat, be a rat fink. How the hell can I be a rat fink? How can I get my friend picked up? Why can't you get your friend picked up for psychiatric help? If you don't get him picked up today, next year he's going to be busted. And you know what? In Florida, for instance, where I am now, it is a mandatory 5-year sentence in the penitentiary for possession of 1 stick of pot. Now, they say, if you legalize it, that would take away the intrigue, that would take away the cabal, you know, the black market. It isn't so. You know what you have in England? It's legalized there. So you have people standing online waiting for the drugstore to open up. And what do there? They open up, they sell them the stuff, and they go into the park, like Washington Park or Gramercy Park, and they sit there in broad daylight, fixing a shot and taking it, and in front of them is 5 little kids, maybe 2, 4, 6, and 8. Mister, what are you doing? So here you're going to grow into a society of kids who have been exposed to mainline narcotic shooting from the time they were able to walk. What can they possibly grow into? All of you people who say LSD, okay, if you're emotionally stable, you know, it doesn't give you a bad trip. It's a lie. I was thrown from a horse and I had a laminectomy and I ended up in the San Francisco General Hospital. I was operated on by the same doctor who operated on the late Jane Mansfield's son Zoltan when he was mauled by the line. Well, while I was there, they brought in a straight B student, 21-year-old girl from the University of Southern California. She was part Negro, part Spanish, and part Indian. And believe me, she had the beauty of all 3. Well, when I saw her, she was in the psychiatric ward. She had taken a trip on LSD, and it was devastating. They committed her to the psychiatric ward on the 6th floor. One of her college buddies came to visit her and bought her a cube of sugar which had LSD in it, and she decided to escape. The avenue of escape she used was to go out the 6th floor window. How was she going to do that? She took 1 sheet, and even on a king-size bed, I'm sure you all have an idea of the length of a sheet. With that length, she had to tie it to the bedpost, and she lowered herself out the 6th floor. So, of course, she dropped 5 stories. When I saw her, she was on a striker frame. If any of you remember when Kennedy broke his back, it looks like a long spit. Your head is held immobile by 2 ice prongs, your feet are tied by traction, and every 2 hours they turn you over. This girl's neck was broken in 6 places. Now, I found out since that they fused her spine in her neck, and she will always be stiff, but it doesn't make any difference because she is a raving maniac and her prognosis is nil. Now, this is LSD, and I know doctors, and I know lawyers, and I know the most stable people in the world that have taken trips on LSD and are still waiting to return. Now, remember that well, please. And you must forgive me. I talk off the top, and as something comes to my mind, I repeat it. Let me repeat something to you that I know every one of you kids will identify with. Damn it, I did this, or damn it, I did that. My older brother was always bugging me. My sister was always bugging me. My mother and father are always telling me what to do. So great. Rebel. By all means, rebel and start using pills, start using goofballs, start using marijuana, start using horse, and then go to jail. And then you know what? You go into a place like I went to, Rayford, Florida State Penitentiary, where you're thrown into a sardine can, where you eat and you sleep and you mess on the floor and you lay naked for male and female guards to check up on you. And in the morning, because the smell is ridiculous, they hose you out with a power hose. You're told when to eat, what to eat, how to eat, and what do you eat? Beans and cornbread in the afternoon, coffee and grits in the morning, and rice and hogshead cheese in the night, every day from Monday to Sunday. This is what you get. You have no pride. You have no respect. You're stripped of every vestige of anything that you were given by God. Is that what you want? That's what you'll get. You can't get away with it, because I repeat, I'm pretty smart, and I couldn't get away with it. And I am trying my darndest to go all over the country. I work for $52 a week in a house for retarded children, because my thing now is I have to help people. I was helped, and I'll tell you how I was helped. I was in the house of detention right here doing a 6-month sentence for being an habitual user. Well, I did my 5 months and I think 20 days, and I was being released the following week. I looked outside, you know, you see 10 10th Avenue or 6th Avenue in Greenwich. And I said, good God, I have to go out in the street and come up against all these squares, maybe getting a cab or getting a bus or a taxi, and see these damn squares, and I'm not going to be high. I can't do it. So I sent out to my connection. I said, would you please meet me with a shot? I can't make the street scene with the squares. I got to be loaded. I was a good customer, you know, $185 a day habit. So he met me in the rotunda of the House of Detention with a shot. I went into the phone booth, and right through my dress, I took that shot. Unfortunately, one of the matrons wanted to make a phone call, and she walked in and busted me. And without ever hitting the street, I was rearrested and got another 6 months as a user. So there I was doing a year without ever hitting the street. Well, I don't say God is dead. I only say that for many, many years we weren't on speaking terms. But this particular day, somebody was up there, and he happened to like me because while I was looking for something else in a magazine, I stumbled on Synanon. And then that man upstairs who liked me finally gave me a little tip and booted me. And I wrote a pathetic letter saying I'm 46 years old, been coming to jail for 18 years, been using stuff for 23 years. Obviously, I need help. Obviously, I can't help myself. Won't you please help me? The lawyer for Synanon came into the House of Detention, and February 11th, 1964, when I was released, there are many clinics here. They are all imitations of Synanon. If you kids have a problem, I don't say go in and join. Go in and find out what it's all about, because all the people there have in one way or another identified with me. They can help you. You kids need help. I assume this is your teacher. Don't be afraid. She's only there to help you. Tell her, get up enough moxie to go and say, I did something, I'm afraid, help me. Jail is not the answer. No prison hospital is the answer. Help, identification, and talking to people who have been there and been through it. That's the only way. You have to learn how to ask for help. People will help you, but they can't help you unless they know you need help, and they can't know you need help if you don't ask for it. Learn how to ask for help. You need it. It took me 23 years, but I learned how to ask for help. I was helped, and I'm trying to help you.
Wherever she goes, Florrie is interested in the comments and questions of young people who have heard her story. Here is a sample of some of the questions asked by these New York City teenagers and her answers.
We'll answer your questions.
Well, I have a question. Don't you think you're being a bit presumptuous with us? First of all, you said that you considered us hippies. What's your connotation for hippies? Because I don't think any of us are really hippies here.
Well, now, fine. My little catalyst here. You're playing devil's advocate. I love that. Well, I use the word hippie merely for the purposes of identification. What I was trying to say, I'll tell you exactly how it is. I was about 21 when I started using stuff. When I finally got into Synanon at the tender age of 46, I thought I was 21. You know, the false eyelashes, which I still wear, but I don't wear the mascara with it. I don't wear tight dresses. I wore dresses shorter than you kids. I really thought I was 21. My growing processes stopped. You know, and I said hippie merely because it's a word that's very much in the, in the papers, on everybody's lips today. But I don't think, well, let me say this. I don't think I'm being presumptuous. I know I am not being presumptuous. You know why? All these thousands of junkies that I have known in my 23 years of hell were kids exactly like you. I'm exactly like you are. I was.
Yeah, I have another question.
Please.
You made it seem obvious that anyone who takes drugs, or let's say marijuana, is seeking some kind of mind satisfaction, or that they have worries, and then you also stated that they need psychiatric help. I don't think it's necessarily true that anyone who tries pot needs psychiatric help, because marijuana is very much like cigarettes. You have many kids right here in this audience who sit down and smoke, or who drink occasionally, and I think they need, if a pot smoker needs psychiatric help, they need just as much psychiatric help as any other pot smoker.
You know, I have been generalizing all along, but I guess in your case, I have to individualize. There are some people that I know who only smoke marijuana, never graduated to heroin. This is what you're saying, right? Yeah, I mean, you say some of them smoke and don't need psychiatric help. Well, I have 6 people that I counted friends who use marijuana, and they never did graduate to heroin. You know why? Because on marijuana, they committed crimes of passion and were electrocuted before they got a chance to get hooked on horse. Now, anything I tell you is factual. They were electrocuted in the electric chair at Rayford and at Sing Sing for murder that they committed while using marijuana. Now, I repeat, you want to individualize? Yes, I'm sure I can find people who tried, nor does he know until he has tried. 1 stick of pot and didn't get anything in it, and he stopped. I also know kids in Florida who smoked oregano, and anybody who cooks knows it's just an herb, and they got a little dizzy or they got a little bitter taste, and man, this is the end. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Somebody gives you anything, catnip, thyme, and rolls it up in a cigarette, and you think you got high on it. That's how psychological it is. And I repeat, if you smoke marijuana, if you think about smoking marijuana, there's something wrong upstairs, and you do need a little psychiatric help. Now, how much you need might be contingent on whether you continue. There are some people who take 1 stick and don't do it again. But there are very, very few, and I wouldn't count on being one of the lucky ones. Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
Did you ever get yellow jaundice?
Yellow jaundice? About 6 times. Yellow jaundice is a disease. It's a liver disease. You turn yellow. Your eyeballs are yellow instead of bloodshot red. And it comes from a dirty needle, using a needle that somebody else used, and possibly there's a drop of blood in it that intermingles. And it's a very devastating disease.
We have time for one more question.
Yes, dear.
You said to drop a dime.
Yeah.
Well, from my experience, I would say that if each of us dropped a dime on every one of our friends that we knew was using...
It would eventually get back to you?
No. That's not... I would say that about 85% of our friends would be, if they lock up something.
What does that tell you? You sit here and you call me presumptuous. You would say, and we'll take it as an off-the-top statistic, 85% of your friends would be... There you go. Well, think about it. Think about it. If somebody doesn't drop a dime on them, you're going to be the lucky girl who has to write 85% of your letters to kids in one jail or another, because you count them friends. Drop a dime on them. Somebody will take it up. Somebody somewhere will take it up. Wouldn't you rather help them now than have to write to them and send them packages? Wouldn't you rather help them now where they get help and not the stigma of a criminal record? Think about it. You are your brother's keeper. You must remember that. You are your brother's keeper. Help them.
You contend that the use of hard drugs started with you...
In an interview following her talk, Florrie Fisher was asked about her first trip back to New York City after she gave up using drugs, and the things she saw that made her realize what she had escaped.
That's right. I came back to New York on a sales trip for Synanon in September. And Synanon is at 35 Riverside Drive, which I believe is 75th Street. And I walked up from 75th Street to 96th Street on Broadway. This is the area that I hustled, that I bought dope, that I sold dope, that I slept 24 hours a day. And I was frightened to death. I just didn't believe it. I saw women that I had known 10 years before that were young, beautiful girls, and they were walking down the street with run-over shoes that didn't have heels, skirts that were pinned together, hanging, almost nothing on top, filthy, dirty, and every part of their exposed arms and legs had running abscesses that I recognized were from, dirty needles and bad stuff. And it frightened me so that I had decided to walk up and walk back. With the good sense to be as scared as I was, I snatched a cab and I ran back to the sanctity of my home. And
Concentrates is the first precinct of the New York City Police Department and the headquarters of the Narcotics Bureau. The problem of juvenile drug abuse has increased the department's responsibility and is a major concern to the head of the Narcotics Bureau, Inspector Ira Blue.
Well, the problem seems to be increasing. We have made more arrests in the past year for violations concerning barbiturates, amphetamines, and marijuana than we did in 1963, which seems to indicate that more people are beginning to use these dangerous drugs other than the hard narcotic drugs. Predominantly, the arrests are for illegal possession of these dangerous drugs and for illegal sales other than pharmacists. But in the past year, we did arrest quite a few pharmacists who are unscrupulous and unethical, who did sell drugs without prescriptions. The youth seem to be interested in taking foreign substances, be it barbiturate pills or amphetamines or marijuana. The younger kids with the glue sniffing. This seems to be something that's in the air. It's an in thing right now. Of these other dangerous drugs, the only addictive one are the barbiturates. An addiction to barbiturates can be much more dangerous than addiction to heroin because withdrawal from barbiturate addiction may result in death. Most people think that the problem of dangerous drugs and narcotic drugs is confined to the slum areas alone. This is not so. We know for a fact that youth from the outlying neighborhoods around New York City are coming into New York City and are purchasing drugs and bringing them back to the suburbs or to the so-called better neighborhoods in New York City where they are selling them or dispensing them to their friends.
Whether it's Yonkers or Westport, Harlem or Brooklyn, young people playing with dangerous drugs are found everywhere. The young people themselves speak candidly of this world outside the law, of the folklore of addiction, of people who have junkie seed, the potential to go from pot to heroin. Slum or middle class, the language is the same.
Well, I'm 16 now. I started smoking in the 9th grade when I was 14. The reason that I took drugs to begin with was because I was very screwed up, very confused. Well, I still am, but I started smoking pot. I first got involved with it by talking to some people, some friends of mine, schoolmates, and we decided to buy some, and so we bought some and smoked it. I had a great sense of floating and a sense of slow time. Those were the main two things that I could remember about it. In some cases, it makes you very paranoid because you begin to, develop suspicions about your friends, and you lose some friends. And also you lose friends because if they know that you're smoking it, they condemn it, they'll drop you as a friend, say you're unhealthy. I sort of tried to keep away from it because it was hurting some friends of mine, some very close friends, like this girl who I wasn't allowed to see during the summer. And it hurts her to know that I smoke it, so, I don't, as much as I can.
We used to sniff, we used to go in the basement, the cops caught us, took us to the house, and then they called our mothers up.
Jimmy is 14 years old. For 2 years, he was psychologically addicted to glue, getting a high from inhaling its fumes. The chemicals in glue or gasoline, cleaning fluids, or nail polish may damage the central nervous system and result in mental retardation.
Boys and girls, I'm going to use the fish tank, and we're going to put one of the animals inside in an environment of glue. Now, I'll coat the glass plate with the glue, and then we'll put the animal inside. All right, it's sufficiently coated at this point. I'll get the animal now. All right, here is our animal, and we'll place him in the fish tank, and we'll watch the environment and the animal. You should begin to notice that the animal begins scratching his nose and his whiskers. Shortly following this, he will begin to reel, and finally he should turn over on his side.
Mickey moved on to 2-0, and the cost of his kick was more than the price of the pills he used.
I don't know, deteriorates it in a way, like things aren't, you lose touch with reality. And also has a bad effect with the heart. I had some trouble myself with that because I couldn't, you can't breathe right, and you don't know what it is, actually. I didn't know what it was. And I just couldn't walk, and I didn't know what it was. So naturally, my distorted mind, I took pills to keep me awake, and when that didn't work, I'd take pills to put me to sleep, and that didn't work, and I didn't know what it was. I had a collection. I got busted one night, and my mother decided that I was, should see a psychiatrist, so I went to Kings County, and I saw a guy there that I had met in prison one time, in the police station, and he came in and he interviewed me, and he says, well, you have a problem, and he started giving me a long line of story about psychiatrists, and we'll get this person to help you. And as far as I'm concerned, it was all talk. So on the way out, I rubbed a few of his prescriptions.
Joey did not waste time experimenting. He began in high school 5 years ago, age 14. It started as weekend fun and games and built to a field. Anything you can to get it. You also develop another habit, getting arrested, busted. The first time is the easiest.
Well, the charge was a set of works. That's a needle and eyedropper, and they were a cooker that you used to cook up the drugs with. And time I got bailed out right away because that's the first my parents knew about my using drugs, so I got bailed out right away. And I got a lawyer that time, and I was put on probation. Second time I stayed in jail. Of course, they knew I was using, they wanted me to kick. I guess they knew it was no good coming into the streets again, that I would just use again, so I didn't get bailed out. I stayed in jail, signed Article 9. So I was in jail for about a month. Went to Manhattan State Hospital for 3 months.
Article 9 of the Metcalf-Volcker Act permits the addict to apply for civil commitment in a hospital instead of prison. Joey has been in hospitals 5 times for drugs. Lexington, Kentucky, Manhattan State Hospital, and Manhattan General Hospital. In addition to the months there, he has lost time in jail.
Each time, the most I'd stop for a few days, and then I go right to drugs again.
Right back to drugs again. Back to the streets. A cycle.
Getting arrested, getting sentenced, going to jail, coming out, going back into the same environment, doing the same things he was doing before on the streets, getting arrested again, and so on and so forth, just back and forth, back and forth. Same cycle. Happens to just about everybody. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 make it. Out of everybody I know, about 1 out of 1,000 make it. They don't go back to hospitals. Sooner or later they're going to come out of the hospital, they're going to come to jail. It's one place or the other, hospital, jail, or have it on the streets. They search you when they arrest you, they search you again in the precinct house and get all naked. And I'll be weighing like 98 pounds because I gotta have it, the old bones and rib cages. It's very embarrassing.
The next push on the revolving door is prison. The adolescent remand shelter, otherwise known as the Atlantic Avenue Jail in Brooklyn. The number of persons under the age of 21 arrested for narcotics violations in 1964 increased 53% over the previous year, a figure that does not include addicts arrested on other charges, larceny or petty theft to support a habit. The next turn for many teenage offenders is a hospital. The narcotics program of the New York State Department of Mental Hygiene answers a need for scientific research and medical care. The Metcalf-Volcker Act of 1962 established a comprehensive state program and males are in Manhattan State Hospital on Ward's Island. Whether they arrive voluntarily or through the courts, patient stays approximately 3 months. In its efforts to assist addicted youths, the hospital offers a full range of diagnostic treatment services, from psychiatric care to recreational therapy. This is not hospital recreational therapy. It is a commercial billiard parlor which shares a floor with one of the City Health Department's 4 rehabilitation centers. The rehabilitation center is meant to help the addict, adult or adolescent, after his release from a hospital. It purposely carries on its business in an area of high narcotics incidence. But the competition is tough, and signs of other activity are evident. Between the light fixture and the ceiling, a hypodermic syringe was concealed. It was found there by the WCBS television camera crew. And so, back to the streets. The revolving door lets you in and out at the same place. He has been a patient and a prisoner. We know him as Mike.
Started with pills and cough medicine, barbiturates. Was about 13, 12 or 13. It was curiosity. Everybody else was getting high, you know. Guess I wanted to find out what it was like. Everybody said it was nice. So I tried it. Pills, they feel like...
Age 20, height 6.
Hey, Joey!
We've been waiting for you.
We're gonna be late. I knew we'd find him here. The man's a video freak. Who's calling who a freak?
You will be through playing in time for the party, won't you, Joey?
Hey, no sweat. I wouldn't miss this party for anything. And I came prepared. Some of the best smoke I've ever had. Yeah. It's dynamite. Yeah, we knew we could count on you. And I put a couple of 6-packs in your car. Hey, come on, let's go out to the car and get a little, head start.
Sure, I always like to get in the mood before I get to the party. It's better that way.
Hey, man, I thought you were doing the driving tonight.
Yeah, no head starts on the beer and smoke, guys. Anyway, I don't want anything right now.
Oh, come on. Don't be a nerd, Linda.
Linda, these guys have the wrong idea. Let's find some other way to get to the party. Okay, if you feel that way, maybe we'll wait till later. But let's get out of here, Joey. Come on, you got the wheels.
Okay, come on.
Come on,
Let's go.
It's gonna be great.
Hey, wait up, you guys. I've never seen this one before.
Wow, I've never seen it before either.
There's no machine I can't beat.
Oh, no.
Joey,
Come
in a
on.
minute.
Come on.
He's sure hooked on these video games.
Just make it fast, okay?
All right.
Welcome to Smokey Joe's High Ride. The object of the game is to get Smokey Joe and his friends to the party. The game consists of 3 rides. You begin with 1,000 points, and you will gain or lose points depending on how skillfully you drive. Each driving error you commit will result in a forfeit. If you lose all your points, the game is over.
Hey, this is easy. Nothing I like better than winning one I never played before.
Well, maybe this one will get you.
Don't worry about me. This is a cinch.
Ride 1.
Better watch it. I bet there's some trick to this.
Hey, it's just a plain old street. I've driven on hundreds like it.
Excellent. Stopping at the red light earns you 50 points.
Anybody knows that.
Good move.
You earn 50 points for stopping at the stop sign.
You can go now, Joey.
Just a sec. How'd you know that was coming? I'm a genius.
That was quick thinking. By stopping at the yellow, you avoided a possible accident, and your side vision told you someone was coming from your left. You win 100 points.
It was nothing. Hey, he drives better than you, Joey. You would have creamed that motorcycle. Liar. Face it, I'm a terrific driver. What's with him? Cool it, mister. Take it easy.
Some people drive like they have to get there before everyone else.
Go on, Joey. Pass the truck. It's okay.
Okay. It looks safe now.
Well done. You passed when you should have, avoiding a dangerous situation. You took the time to decide what to do and when to do it. That earns you 100 points.
Way to go, Joey.
Follow this road till you come to the railroad tracks. Take the first right after the tracks. Oak Street. That's where the party will be. You took those curves nicely. You get 50 points.
Good going, Joey.
Go ahead, Joey. You've got plenty of time. No, we'll just sit here and wait. There she goes.
Very good. You get 100 points for using good judgment and obeying the warning signals. You've arrived at the party. 50 points for making it there safely. That's the end of Ride 1.
Not bad.
You really showed the machine. Okay, let's go.
Hold on. It's not over yet.
Ride 2. Your score is 1,500 points.
Boy, this ride's gonna be a little, different. Hey, it's nothing I can't handle.
They don't even have their seatbelts on anymore. I don't know why she had to do that. She didn't even want it.
Because everyone's doing it.
Look out now. Driving won't be so easy this time.
He's only taken 2 tokes.
Are you kidding? I've seen you acting really spaced out after only 2 tokes.
It's the same street. Yeah, I know what to do.
No way, Jose. You lose 75 points for running a red light. Now, what did you do that for? You didn't react promptly enough, so you lose another 75 points.
Okay, now, take your time.
Who's driving, Cal? You or me?
Joey, would you please pay attention?
You should have waited at that yellow light for the oncoming traffic. And you didn't detect that motorcycle coming from the side. That's very dangerous. 150 points off your score.
He's going way too slow.
Get out from behind that truck.
Not now, stupid.
stupid. He's just stoned.
That was no time to pass. You lose 150 points.
Look out for that car! Hey, take it easy, Joey.
You did manage those curves, but not very well. You weren't on the lookout for other cars. No points on that one. Watch out from here on. Wrong. You can't stop here. You lose 200 points.
What's the matter with you?
Get off my back.
Joey, he missed it.
Oak Street, did you forget?
You weren't concentrating. That memory loss will cost you 50 points. You made it to the party, but just barely. That's the end of Ride 2.
I don't get it. I can smoke and drive at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
I straighten up the minute I get my hands on the wheel.
Come on, Joey, let's get out of here. I'm ready to party!
So wait up, will you? I've got another ride.
Ride 3. Your score is 800 points.
They're doing it again.
Just a few tokes, Linda. Take it easy, okay?
Drinking and smoking together? Those guys are out of their heads. I pity the driver who gets in their way now.
You just watch.
The man is unconscious. He thinks he's the only car on the road.
Hold on. You just lost 100 points for running a red and 100 more for running a stop sign.
I don't see anything coming.
Maybe I should stop.
Move it.
But I think
Keep going, you're gonna hit.
You should have stopped at that yellow light. For causing that accident, you forfeit 200 points.
Get him moving, Joey. They want to get to the party. He's holding everybody else up. Oh, terrific.
How do you expect me to concentrate when you're all telling me what to do?
Come on, make a decision. You don't have a choice now. Give it some gas.
That was awful.
You lost your cool and caused a pileup. 200 points off your score.
Slow down, Joey.
Watch it. There are other cars on the road. Joey!
You took those curves too fast, and you didn't stay on your side of the road. You were responsible for another accident, so you lose 200 points. Your score is now 0, but you have one last chance. Don't blow it.
The party started. Come on, Joey.
I think you can beat that signal.
The train's coming. Stop the car.
I can't. It won't work.
Joey, it's right on top of them.
Do something, man.
I think you can make it. It won't work.
Three killed in automobile train crash. Driver survives and is arrested for driving under the influence of drugs and possession of marijuana. You have no points left to lose, hotshot. That's the end.
So, you guys ready to go to the party?
Not if you're gonna smoke and drink in the car. If you want to do that, I'll bum a ride.
Come on, Cal, you've driven with me before.
He's right, Joey. Are you going to smoke in the car or not?
I guess not. Me either.
Come on, Cal.
As a matter of fact, I think I'll keep my eye on you tonight, just in case.
Wait a minute. Don't light that cigarette. Innocent-looking thing, isn't it? Just a piece of paper and some dried, shredded plant leaves inside. Nothing to get excited about. Or is it? In the United States alone last year, over 60 million smokers puffed, now get this, 400 billion cigarettes. Not million, billion. And how much did these little paper incinerators cost them? $4.5 billion. That's for the cigarettes alone. That doesn't include pipes, cigars, lighters, matches, ashtrays, cigarette holders, or what have you. And it doesn't include one other little item. Fire. Insurance men will tell you that 1 out of every 3 fires in the United States is a result of smoking. Pretty expensive habit. All right, so you can afford the $150 to $500 a year steady smoking is going to cost you. And you're going to be careful and not set any of those thousands of fires. Are there any in smoke? There are plenty of reasons why you shouldn't, but they can be pretty well condensed into 3 main ones. 1, you're not going to live as well. 2, you're not going to be as healthy. Let's consider the first one. If you smoke, you can make up your mind you're not going to be as good at sports. Your wind is shorter, you tire easily, your heart works harder, and your coordination isn't as good. There's no arguing with that. Too many research studies have verified it. The old cliche about a cigarette helping you enjoy food is just so much rot, too. Smoke, you won't have as keen an appetite. Your dinner won't taste or smell as good, and you aren't going to digest it as well. What that adds up to is that you aren't going to enjoy eating half as much. Ever wonder what insomnia was like? Just smoke steadily for a while. You'll find out. You'll roll and toss in bed with the best of them. And even if you can sleep, you won't sleep as well. Before we take a quick look at the second point, the effect of tobacco on your health, let's see what's in a cigarette that might act on the body. Aldehydes, and disinfectants and embalming fluid. Arsenic, a deadly poison used in insecticides. Carbolic acid, a powerful caustic. Formic acid, the chemical that makes a bee sting swell up and pain. Methyl alcohol, this is deadly wood alcohol. Hydrocyanic acid, this is the cyanide gas used for executing criminals. Now all these chemicals and many others are in cigarettes, in minute, but there is one poison just as deadly as any of the others that occurs in definite concentration, and that is nicotine. This is an almost unbelievably deadly poison. The nicotine from just 2 cigarettes injected into the blood will kill a man instantly. A drop on the skin of a rabbit causes convulsions and death. Now consider, every year thousands of gallons of nicotine are drawn into American smokers' lungs. What effect does that have on national health? Well, we can safely say that tobacco smoke is far more concentrated and far more active chemically than the air pollution about which everybody complains. Now let's take a look at some of the direct effects of smoking. What do cigarettes do to the heart? They do plenty. One cigarette can raise the heartbeat from 10 to 60 beats a minute. It raises the blood pressure 40 or 50 points. When an expectant mother smokes, it even raises the pulse of her unborn baby. No wonder a doctor's first words to a heart disease patient are, "Give up smoking." You ever notice how many smokers complain of cold hands and feet? There's a reason. Habitual smoking means poor circulation. It shrinks the small blood vessels, causing the cold sensation. In extreme cases, this leads to Berger's disease and amputation of the feet and hands. That makes it much tougher to light a cigarette anyway. Here's a traditional American scene, that first cigarette behind the barn or garage. And the reactions are typical, too, coughing and nausea. Funny, huh? But think of the irritation to the delicate membranes of mouth, throat, and lungs that cause these reactions. Multiply this by a few 100,000, and you see how the habitual smoker assaults these sensitive organs in his lifetime. Did you know that tobacco tar has been used to induce cancer in laboratory animals? Now consider, every drag of smoke from a cigarette introduces the combustion products of this cancer-inducing tar into the nose and mouth, into the throat, and into your lungs. The logical result? What do you think? Cancer of the lungs was a relatively rare disease 20 years ago, but in searching for a cause for the alarming increase the last 2 decades, Public Health Service researchers observed this. Understand what that means? The increase in deaths from lung cancer almost exactly parallels the growth of smoking in the last 20 years. The villain, without much doubt, is our lady nicotine. As a matter of fact, it's a rare thing to find a victim of lung cancer who hasn't been a heavy cigarette smoker. If you smoke a pipe, you have a lot less chance to get lung cancer. But then, you've got a much better chance for cancer of the mouth or lip. There are other effects, too, on the eyesight, the brain, and some researchers even claim now that tobacco actually represses the reproductive organs. But what's the overall effect? That's right. When you smoke, you're shortening your life. Point number 3. And by how much? By anywhere from 2 to 10 years, depending on how much you smoke. Life, the most precious commodity we have. And everywhere around us, it's literally going up in smoke. All right. Why do so many people smoke anyway? The answer is that there's a certain amount of gratification of the senses from tobacco. Perhaps the real reason people smoke is habit. A habit that once acquired is hard to break. As you can see from Joe here, who swore off smoking this morning again. He's failed one more time. But if you asked him, he'd undoubtedly tell you he can quit smoking any time he feels like it. You ever noticed how many habitual smokers wish they could give it up? Now let's take a look at our 3 points again. Almost invariably, a heavy smoker, if he can manage to give up tobacco, finds he enjoys life more, is sick far less frequently or seriously, and lives longer. There are all sorts of methods for breaking the smoking habit. Psychologists, authors, doctors, they all have pet methods, and books and articles are written on them every day. But there's one method of giving up smoking that's the easiest, most painless of all, and with practically no failures. What is it? The only sure way, but far and away the best one. Don't acquire the habit in the first place. Don't smoke at all. Simple advice like that has a hard time making itself understood against the tremendous flood of tobacco advertising. Millions of dollars are spent every year, and every year they produce 800,000 new smokers. Phenomenal for a habit that does nobody the slightest good, that costs billions of dollars, and that is undermining the health of the entire nation in a way that is only now becoming understood. But if these arguments don't add up, if you still want to smoke, go ahead, light up. Might as well get started on those 12.5 miles of cigarettes you'll puff in your tobacco-shortened lifetime if you become even a moderate smoker. Now you're making sense.
Marijuana, than 40 million Americans smoke it, more than half of the children coming out of high school this year in New York. It's no secret. But what has been a secret is what it does to us. Now scientists are beginning to understand for the first time how it affects us. If you smoke, if someone you care about smokes, then you should know the facts. That's the purpose of this report.
There is some evidence that the heavy use of these substances will be associated with an increase in infections, mostly infections of the lung, of the upper respiratory tract. More bronchitis, more colds, more of those diseases which are disabling for so many millions of people.
3/4 of the people in America smoke that stuff.
How old are you?
Me, 11.
And your friends have smoked it?
Mm-hmm.
These tests that are being done around the country have shown that there is physical damage to the brain, there is physical damage to the lungs, there is physical damage to the sexual organs, and there is physical damage to the body's ability to fight infection.
That is correct.
So that's frightening.
It is a very frightening thought indeed, and what worries me especially is the use of marijuana by especially young children, the use of marijuana that is much more toxic than it was 8 or 9 years ago, and the escalation of marijuana coming into this country from foreign countries.
One joint today is the equivalent of how many joints 5 years ago?
Approximately 8 or 10. One joint today is a tiny stick of dynamite.
I was at home and I was stoned. I would get up to wash the dishes, let's say, and then I would get up and I'd wander around and I'd forget actually why I got up.
Your memory was sharper, you said, after you stopped.
My memory is sharper, yeah.
It is sharper now.
I can think faster. I can respond faster. I can feel the situation a lot more. I'm more in the situation.
If I did smoke during the day on the weekend, let's say, and then went out and walked around outside, there would be feelings of paranoia.
Everybody has trouble, like, at some point remembering a name. But when I was stoned, it wouldn't come back to me.
They keep telling me, would you repeat the question? I forgot the beginning of the question because the question was too long.
Cleveland, Dr. Ingrid Lantner. As a pediatrician, she examines children daily. She visits schools. She has observed changes in her patients who smoke marijuana.
They cannot concentrate for schoolwork. They cannot remember what they read. They cannot remember their phone numbers.
Their own phone numbers.
They carry their phone numbers along so they can call home. Some of them state that they cannot remember their own birth date.
Wow.
They have problems when they fill out application forms to remember their own birth date, which I think is a very striking, very saddening, really frightening statement in my mind.
New Orleans, the Tulane University Medical School. Dr. Robert Heath, professor and chairman of the Department of Psychiatry. He observed that students and patients who smoked marijuana appeared to show symptoms of brain damage. He wanted more proof. He began a study with rhesus monkeys. The monkeys were given the human equivalent of 1 joint a day, 5 days a week. After 3 months, there was a change in their brain waves.
We're seeing rather marked changes in these recordings in the top channels where electrical activity is correlated with emotion. We have these high amplitude waveforms appearing in the hip at this site and down here where we have these big slow humps. Now these changes are the type that we know from experience with humans are the type that are correlated with irritability when we see these spiking, as we see here in this channel, and the slow wave down. When we see the slow wave down here, actually, this person would be a little reduced in awareness, sort of dazed.
After 6 months, the change in the brain waves was more extreme. Then the monkeys were taken off marijuana for 7 months. The brain waves did not return to normal. But the most dramatic evidence was photographed through an electron microscope. These pictures of single brain cells show physical damage. This photograph is the part of the brain cell magnified 80,000 times. And again, we can see the very straight lines in the cell. And then the monkey that was exposed to the drug has none of the lines. The lines are completely disorganized.
That's correct.
In the monkey brains, you're finding permanent brain damage.
That's correct.
And you're saying that as a neurologist, dealing with people, with patients, you're finding similar symptoms?
That's quite correct, and particularly in a large number of adolescents who have smoked marijuana over a significant period of time.
about school? Did it affect your schoolwork?
Yeah, it did. But I think it's because I had been smoking so long that it had actually deadened some of my memories, deadened some of my ability to work, to get into the work.
Have you seen young children who are burned out by marijuana?
Oh, yes. Yes. I think every school has plenty of them. My practice certainly has good portion. I can state without one hesitation that in 1 year I have noticed more destroyed human beings in my practice, if one call destruction of brain function, destruction of human being, more than I have seen in 25 years. Which by that I mean I have lost less patients with leukemia, cancer, in 25 years of my practice than I have lost in 1 year with marijuana.
I play a lot of chess, and I play speed chess, and the difference in my game is just remarkable. I found that I would concentrate on one part of the board in one particular problem instead of looking at the whole picture. I found that my mind would drift and I wasn't able to follow through and plan 5 moves in advance. I could move 2 or 3 moves in advance.
Chess requires a special concentration. In schools across the country, students are finding there are certain types of thinking they just can't do anymore after smoking marijuana.
It didn't make sense, whereas something that made sense before did not make sense.
But you had, in the years before, you had been very good in chemistry, biology, physics.
I was especially good in math, and I used to tutor math. I was rather proud of it, as a matter of fact. And my math ability is pretty well shot. I mean, even to sometimes simple addition, I have trouble with now.
This is the campus of the University of California at Berkeley. A leading doctor here has completely changed his mind on marijuana.
Dr. Harvey Powelson, as director of psychiatry and professor of medicine, he had announced publicly that marijuana was harmless. But then he too observed changes in his students, changes in their ability to think.
They had trouble, for instance, really concentrating their attention, concentrating on working the same way as they had before. And there were certain levels of thinking that they couldn't achieve anymore. People would come back who'd been in mathematics and logic, who couldn't do that branch of learning anymore because it required a certain kind of thinking.
Even though they had stopped smoking marijuana for some period of time,
right,
they still could never regain that level of concentration.
I don't know if anybody knows about never, because we haven't seen patients for that long a time. For periods of months up to years.
I had no drive. I was working at a really low-level job that I knew was very much beneath my capabilities, simply because that didn't interfere with my getting stoned.
Atlanta, Dr. William Stewart, neurologist.
Its effect pharmacologically is one of a suppression or a decrease in their motivation. It inhibits or impairs their ability to interact with their peers and socialize.
My way of coping with the anxieties was to get high, and I didn't know any other way. So when it came to all those feelings came up, my only way of dealing with it was get stoned, hide out from them, avoid them.
They are gradually cut off from the world. The consequences of that is that they see that they become more important to themselves, and they actually lose the capacity to care about the things around them and the people who ordinarily are important to them.
Family.
Family, family, friends.
I think the other thing that you have to be very frightened of is when pot takes the place of people.
Was it hard to stop smoking?
Sure, it was hard. Pot was my friend for years.
We know now many things we didn't know then. One is that the active principle stays in the body for a long period of time. It particularly stays in the brain, and in a part of the brain that has to do with the vegetative nervous system, the area around the third ventricle.
You're saying the THC chemical in the marijuana stays in the
brain for a long time, right? And people who use it regularly stay stoned regularly because it never actually leaves the brain.
Even if they smoke once a week, or
that's right. If they smoke once a week, it's there continuously, and it's affecting their thinking all the time.
I smoked grass, I smoked it heavy, the periods got light. I smoked in the early part of my pregnancy. I lost my babies.
There are some teenagers who come in and they're worried they're pregnant, and then because they haven't had periods for 2-3 months, and then they are happy that they are not pregnant because their pregnancy test is negative. They come back about 2 months later, they are still not menstruating. They wonder why not.
In clinic after clinic, the pattern is emerging. Some women who smoke marijuana appear to have trouble with their menstrual cycles, appear to have trouble getting pregnant. To find out why, a team of doctors began a study with rhesus monkeys.
Why are you using monkeys in this study?
We have shown that the rhesus monkey has a reproductive system that is very similar to the human system. They have a menstrual cycle that is roughly 28 days, like the human female. We think from our initial studies that the effects that we see in the rhesus monkey will be reproducible in women.
The monkeys were given the human equivalent of 1 joint a day. The effect on the monkeys was striking.
We find in these monkeys that we have administered the drug to that there is a definite decrease in the reproductive hormones. The effect of the drug would be in the production of infertility and possibly the loss of sexual function.
To confirm their findings, Dr. Ricardo Ash of the University of Texas Medical School used a special scope to look inside the bodies of the monkeys.
What are you finding, doctor?
In this animal, both ovaries are unstimulated. That means that there is no evidence for ovulation or release of an egg from the ovaries.
The monkey has not dropped an egg at all.
It's not dropping an egg.
We think that in addition to making these animals infertile, we think that because of the similarities, the same result might occur in women.
But the effects of marijuana on monkeys, and possibly women, are very complicated. After the monkeys had been given marijuana for a much longer period of time, they developed a tolerance for the drug. They began to get pregnant again. On the other side of the country, another study began. This is the California Primate Research Center. A doctor here has found some startling effects of marijuana on pregnancy.
In terms of the effects on reproduction, we found that in the females that have been receiving the drug over a long period of time, over 40% of the pregnancies that are established pregnancies do not result in healthy live offspring.
That result was jarring enough, but the doctors observed another surprising result. The baby monkeys who lived were apparently affected by the drug too.
This is particularly alarming too because it's subtle, and it does not mean that you can look at them in a group of monkeys and pick these out. But it does mean that they do not interact with other little monkeys in exactly the same way that the offspring of the non-drugged mothers do.
What does a study with a rhesus monkey mean to a woman? That's a matter of scientific debate. But for women who are experiencing the symptoms, the studies are hard to ignore.
I lost 2 babies in the last 2 years. I wanted them, and especially the last one. And now you just sat here and told me that 44% of the monkeys lost their babies or had dead babies. And that's what happened to mine.
Yet you continue to smoke marijuana.
I think that there is a particular breed of insanity associated with marijuana.
You were skeptical when you began the study. You didn't think the drug was harmful. What would you say now?
I'd say that I think marijuana should definitely be taken out of the harmless category. It's a drug that produces extremely subtle effects, but the effects are there.
You are looking at a normal sperm cell. In a healthy man, most sperm cells are normal. This sperm cell is not normal. After smoking marijuana heavily, there is an increase in the number of abnormal cells. Dr. Wiley Hembry of the Columbia University Medical School ran a tightly controlled study.
There was a decrease in the sperm count at the end of 1 month of smoking, which amounted to a 40% decrease. There was a small decrease in the percent of the sperm that moved, and there was a smaller 10% decrease in the number of normal sperm.
You are looking at the effect of hashish on sperm cells. Hashish is a derivative of marijuana. The dark sperm cell has a normal amount of protein. The lighter colored cells have less protein. They are the cells of chronic hashish users. This study was done in Greece. At this clinic in St. Louis, doctors were surprised by the results of their study.
We were surprised to find that quite consistently, men who used marijuana over a long period of time and in high amounts showed a significant lowering in their circulating levels of testosterone, the primary male sex hormone.
Part of the St. Louis study involved rigorous medical examination. Part of it involved interviews with more than 800 men. The study showed the 250 men who did not smoke marijuana had a 9% rate of impotence. The men who did smoke marijuana daily or almost daily had a 19% rate of impotence. But it's important to note these results are from interviews, not medical examinations.
Your study has shown that marijuana lowers the sperm count, lowers the number of normal sperm. And that sounds frightening. Someone might jump to the conclusion that we're talking about abnormal babies and so on, and we really don't know that, do we?
Absolutely, there is no reason at all from these data to jump to any conclusion.
What you're saying is we really don't know.
That's correct. It should be looked into much more thoroughly than it has been.
Well, based on your studies, can you speculate as to how this would affect a younger, a boy in junior high school, maybe elementary school? The consequence that might occur would be a delay in the onset or completion of puberty. That is, boys who would otherwise be entering the process of puberty, perhaps at age 13, might be delayed for 2 or 3 or more years. If a young couple came to you and said, we're planning to have children, and they wanted to smoke marijuana, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that we've found that at very high levels of marijuana, there clearly is an effect upon the testes. We don't know what risk this might present. If I were they and they smoked regularly, I would stop.
There are some things that need to be said. The comments you heard about the effects of marijuana on pregnancy and puberty are speculation. More research needs to be done. The Greek study you saw with hashish has been questioned by some doctors.
It leaves you with a hoarseness and a raspiness throat.
There was still a period where I continued to smoke every day, and I could feel my bronchi tighten up.
I've been told that there have been some changes in my lungs, in the upper parts of my lungs.
Since you were smoking marijuana?
Yeah.
Can marijuana change your lungs? A doctor at the UCLA School of Medicine studied the effect of marijuana on the lungs of 74 people.
Even those who smoke marijuana more moderately, let's say on the average 1 joint a day, do have an abnormality in one test of breathing ability, which suggests that there may be changes in the large airways, such as the windpipe. This then raises the possibility that there may be a link between marijuana smoking and the development of lung cancer.
Dr. Gary Huber of the Harvard Medical School found that marijuana affected the lungs of laboratory rats.
I'm saying that marijuana smoke changed the lungs of these animals, and we do not know whether that is a significantly adverse change.
You're saying it did change the lungs, but we don't really know what that means yet.
That's right.
There may have been a feeling of a heaviness in my chest and more difficulty in breathing.
The most dramatic effect on the lungs was shown in the study of Dr. Henderson. He examined the lungs of soldiers who were chronic smokers of hashish.
He obtained a tissue sample from the windpipe of these individuals, and we looked under the microscope. He found marked abnormalities which were similar to those found in long-term, much older, heavy users of tobacco who developed lung cancer.
You're saying that lung samples were taken from soldiers who had smoked large amounts of hashish, and those tissues showed a precancerous condition?
That's right.
I've had chest x-rays before, and never did the doctor come back to me and say, are you aware that there are definite changes in the upper lobes of your lungs? And I looked at him, I said, what are you talking about? You know, and he said that there were definite changes. Another thing...
what kind of changes?
Emphysemic changes.
The tar content of the marijuana smoke would probably be about 2 to 3 times the average American cigarette. and probably 10 times the content of a very light tobacco cigarette.
Tests with cigarettes have shown that tar does cause cancer. Now, you have measured the amount of tar in marijuana and compared that with the amount of tar in cigarettes. That much more tar in marijuana?
That's right. That's right.
And you measured this?
Yes.
In a laboratory?
That's right.
However, it should be mentioned that not a single case of lung cancer in man has ever been linked to marijuana smoking. That doesn't mean that there isn't a link. It just hasn't been looked into carefully enough.
But we have seen precancerous condition in man from smoking marijuana.
Which suggests that marijuana has a real potential for causing lung cancer, but a potential that needs to be explored by further investigation.
I suffered with asthma when I was in high school very badly. And when I started smoking marijuana, I realized that, I found out really that when I felt a spasm coming on, if I took maybe like 2 or 3 drags off it, I felt more relaxed.
Marijuana. Is it medicine for asthma, or is it a dangerous drug? A study at UCLA found that marijuana may be both.
Smoking a single joint of marijuana opens up the airways. This is a potentially beneficial effect, particularly in people with asthma, for example, who have constriction of their airways. And this improvement lasts for a couple hours. However, when that same individual is asked to smoke several joints a day over several weeks, after this period of time, his breathing ability becomes worse than it was in the beginning.
And I found that by smoking a joint or taking 2 or 3 drags off a joint, I was relaxed, I could breathe easier, and I wasn't tense. And it got to the point where it would just stop the spasm altogether.
By no means should an asthmatic smoke marijuana to obtain relief of constriction, because marijuana contains hundreds of chemicals, some of which are known irritants to the lung, and some of which can cause cancer.
I found by continually smoking it, over the last, I'll say 3 to 4 years, I haven't had an asthma attack.
Marijuana may cause lung cancer, but ironically, marijuana may be used to treat cancer indirectly. The direct treatment for cancer is chemotherapy, but the treatment causes problems of its own, nausea and vomiting. Marijuana eases nausea, but a new study has raised new questions. The study involved more than 100 cancer patients at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota.
Marijuana does show some effectiveness against nausea and vomiting. However, the problems are this. Even though it does show some effectiveness against the nausea and vomiting, it has marked central nervous system toxicity. It proved to be no better in reducing the nausea and vomiting than compazine or prochlorperazine, which is a standard agent used nowadays.
But a doctor here at the Harvard Medical School disagrees. He says that for some cancer patients, marijuana works better than any other drug.
And we find that marijuana, or THC, works in about 3/4 of the cases. It's effective as an anti-nausea, anti-vomiting drug. Compazine is effective in about 50% of the cases.
So marijuana works in some cases where the standard drug compazine won't work?
Does not work.
You're saying that the marijuana worked, but the side effects are too dangerous, and there is another commonly used drug that works just as well as the marijuana.
Yes, the central nervous system side effects from the marijuana outweigh its relative effectiveness.
You've never lived with a rottener person for the first week or so that I wasn't smoking.
Do you mean you had withdrawal symptoms?
Oh, yeah, I didn't want to, it wasn't a physical thing. But mentally, I was just destroyed.
Withdrawal symptoms? A new study has shown that may be the case. The study was done at the University of California Medical School in San Francisco. More than 100 people were tested. When they stopped receiving the THC from marijuana, they experienced withdrawal symptoms.
That included irritability, angry mood, disturbed sleep, restlessness, decreased appetite, increased perspiration, chills, feverish feeling, nausea, and other abdominal distress.
Withdrawal syndrome. Does this study imply that marijuana is addictive? That question will be hotly debated. This will be a controversial study. But we do know this. Hundreds of people in New York who smoke marijuana are having a hard time giving it up for whatever reason.
I cut down from just about every day to just a little bit after work and maybe a little bit to go to sleep, because it ended up I needed to knock myself out by getting high. But I couldn't actually stop.
I think pot's just as bad as alcohol. I mean, I've worked in alcohol for 3 years. It's just as bad.
I have tried to stop or quit as were in the past, but I've never been successful at staying away from it completely. Over the past year, the longest time I had stayed away from it had been 3 days.
Is marijuana addictive? Recently, there's some evidence to indicate that marijuana is addicting. There was an excellent paper at our conference by Reese Jones, and he took 100 volunteers, and he showed definite signs of increased tolerance with the use of cannabis, and when it was stopped, the withdrawal syndrome. And those are the two cardinal ingredients to addiction.
Show marijuana may be dangerous, but there are studies like ganja in Jamaica which show marijuana may not be dangerous. It may turn out to be a useful medicine. We can only say the experts disagree, but the experts do agree on this one point. Because of what we do know about marijuana, or what we don't know, young people should not smoke it, not while their minds and bodies are still developing. Of course, more and more young people are smoking it, some of them in elementary school. As for adults, that's still a matter of hot debate.
Question arises. What does one under the influence of LSD hear, see, and do? We're about to take you into the world of the LSD user. A world that to him is real, yet as terrifying and unreal as anything ever imagined. We call his trip of terror to fly a giant bird.